My old speech teacher said that never apologize when you start a speech. But I apologize this morning for not standing up at the podium. That knee that I had replaced a few weeks ago walks fairly good, but doesn't let me stand. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to sit. As I started putting this thing together, it just went every different direction. And so what I decided to do, for some of you I've known for quite a while, some of you have known me for quite a while, some of you claim that you haven't known me for quite a while, and some of you I don't know, and you don't know me. So what I thought I would do is start with a bio, a short bio. I was born in 1943, so that you make sure that I'm 80. I graduated from high school in 1961. I graduated from college, a small denominational college in Kansas in 1965, in May. In June of that year, Karen and I got married, and I was planning to come home and farm. Well, Uncle Sam had a little something to say about that because farmers didn't get deferments. So that means if I came home to farm, I would be drafted and go someplace that I didn't want to go. So Karen and I went back, got our teaching certificates, and in the fall of 1966, we started teaching in the Waterloo school system. She taught English, I taught general science at Edison Junior High. In '68, our daughter Shanley was born. There was a deferment. So I didn't have to worry about going to the service. In January, that was November of '68. In January of '69, I resigned from the school system, started farming, expanded the farming operation, and went full-time farmer. In '71, our son Clay was born. In '73, we joined an organization called the Unitarian Universalist Society of Black Hawk County, which is now CVUU. The '70s were exciting years. I don't know about you, but I'm old enough that there was a lot of things happening, and Karen and I, we were part of the desegregation of the Waterloo schools by sending our kids to Grant School. Karen was involved in the women's awareness movement. And being her spouse, I didn't have too much choice but to either participate or leave, and I participated. In '79, I opened a men's clothing store in downtown Waterloo. It was the Black Hawk Fruit Company warehouse, where they took an old warehouse, made it into a shopping center. There was a restaurant, a men's clothing store, a women's clothing store. I thought that was a pretty good thing. However, 3 months later, John Deere started laying off like it is now, and 10,000 people later, it left a little hole in Waterloo. In 1982, our son Clay was diagnosed with myelocytic leukemia and died in May of '83. Shortly after Clay's death, the bank foreclosed on the clothing store and then on the farm. So my dreams that I started out with kind of went down the tubes. But my friend Dave Nagel was elected to the Congress in 1986 and asked me to coordinate his district offices. In '91, our daughter Shanley and Sean got married. In '93, Bill Clinton appointed me to the regional director of FEMA in Kansas City. So Karen and I headed south. In '96, our first grandson was born. And of course, Oh, Pam isn't. Well, there's Margie and Pam. I keep telling them that I have the best grandson in all the wide world, and they choose to differ with me. In '99, our second grandson was born. In 2000, Karen and I came home. In 2002, our granddaughter Anna was born, the one I talked about that's going to Anaheim. In 2004, I was elected to Blackhawk County Supervisor for 3 terms. I then became a celebrant and worked for Locke Funeral Home. I helped people put together services for the people who had died that needed help. In 22, I had a little health problem, and in 2023, we moved into Friendship Village. Now that, in a nutshell, even though the nutshell's cracked, is a bio for me. For those of you that don't know who I am from a bale of hay, I want to start with talking about Clay's death. People don't want to talk about that, and I don't want to be maudlin. But the most devastating thing that can happen to a family, a community, a church, a school, is the death of a child. And Clay was no exception. He was diagnosed in January of '82 and died in '83. And all that time we agonized over whether we get to keep him, what we're going to do, how we're going to make sure that he stays alive. When he died, the church stepped forward and helped do his service. We had a service up the road at the Methodist Church because this church wouldn't hold all the people that were coming. We had the visitation here, and so Karen and I were just overwhelmed. We had a friend of mine from Chicago who brought cousins of Karen's, came for the service. We had my roommate from eastern Colorado brought his son. We had a carload of medical people from Iowa City, which just kind of floored us, came to give their condolences. And so for 3 hours, Karen and I stood back here as people came through to offer their condolences and best wishes. Towards the end of that visitation, 3 little old ladies, yes, I qualified, but not then, came through from Orange, where we lived, and they were offering their condolences. And as they walked away, they very calmly said, "Well, it's God's will." And that didn't set so good with me. And so after the service, a couple of days later, I wrote a letter to my friend John Cummins at Twin Cities, who was a minister. And I said, and who had lost a son, and I said, "John, I need help." And he said, well, he wrote a letter back, and I still have it. It says, "God must be an SOB to take a 10-year-old boy that is healthy, give him an incurable disease, and watch him die 15 months later." And that one helped me, because I got rid of the bearded, white-robed God that was somewhere that a lot of people believe in, but I couldn't get over all of the people that had come and helped us during Clay's So I became a spiritualist. And the best part of it is that this church allows me to be a spiritualist. It allows you to be an atheist or whatever you choose to be. And that's really special. So that's my story about clay. Now I want to talk to you about ministers. We're short on ministers this time, and you got stuck with me doing a service. Is because Emma is on sabbatical. Several years ago, we didn't have a minister. When Karen and I joined, this was a fellowship, and we had Sunday morning services. We're dancing around the maypole. We're John Cowley giving us a lecture on who knows what. But every month we had a minister, Scotty Meek, who came down from Rochester and gave us a service. And when that happened, the building was full. And then the next week we'd go back to dancing around the maypole, and there weren't very many people here. And UUA, the national organization, saw that happening in many congregations here, in many fellowships here, Topeka, Kansas, Fargo, North Dakota. And so they put together a program of an extension minister that, and the program is that if you fellowship agreed to hire a minister, the UUA would pay for a minister for 4 months to come and be a part of your organization, do the services, on Sunday morning. But the kicker is that the church that he was a part of, would have to agree to get a full-time minister. So John Cummins, who was the chair of the Prairie Star District, came. We had a congregational meeting one evening, and he told us what the program was going to be, and then we voted. Well, to everybody's surprise, because we had a lot of there were a lot of people here who did not like ministers, right? And they were very adamant about not liking ministers. But when we got done with this, we voted to see whether we were going to accept the conditions, and guess what? The vote was 25-2. So we got David Frainer as an extension minister. He was here for 4 months. He worked hard at and we brought people in that we hadn't seen before who began to come. And then as he left, we hired Michael Hennon as a full-time minister, and the rest is history. And that's why we have Emma, and we've had her long enough so that she can get a sabbatical. That's why you've got me this morning. Now, the last story I want to tell is a little uneasy for me. When I was with the clothing store, every couple of weeks in the restaurant, the women's store would have a style show, and the women the models would come and display the latest thing in women's fashion. Well, I watched that for a couple of times, and thought, well, if the women can do it, I can walk through there too. So I got some of the clothes that we were selling, and I walked through and somebody said, well, you do a good job. You ought to get a modeling agency. So I went to Des Moines and got a modeling agency and did modeling for Yonkers. And then I got one in Minneapolis, and I got modeling agency up there, and I was doing quite well. The pay was $90 an hour, and that was yeah, that was not the only problem is you didn't work every day. You worked whenever they called you. And so I was in Minneapolis working, came home, walked in the door, and the phone was ringing. And it was the modeling agency. And they said, "We need you back here tomorrow." I said, "Oh, gee, what am I doing?" "Well, Donaldson's is doing an insert for Sunday paper, and we want you to, we need some help in doing modeling." And I said, "What am I modeling?" And they said, "Men's underwear." And I said, "You've got to be kidding me." I said, but they said, "Well, here's something that may entice you. We'll double your pay." So I said, "Okay, I'll be there." So I went to Minneapolis and modeled underwear. "Ken, are we ready to go?" The the kicker with all of this was that it appeared in the Waterloo Courier on Sunday morning. Well, my phone never stopped ringing. And to this day, people have not let me forget that I modeled men's underwear. In fact, I was at a breakfast on yesterday morning or Friday morning, and as they were leaving, one of them said, "Hey, Miller, are you going to model underwear this afternoon?" And I said, "I don't think so." Um, Talking about what I learned over 80 years, if I talked about this, I would be here. We'd be here till next Tuesday. So I picked some things that I thought would be important. Um, and I can talk about the my time with FEMA and the good things we did there. But I'm going to stop and say thank you for listening. And let's let's go with our next song. Thank you so much.